So generally, guys, great information. I think now's the opportunity to kind of dive a little bit deeper into these, see if there's any other challenges that you may be facing as a company. I guess one question I would ask you three is, in dealing with clients, customers, whatever you want to call them, what's the number one thing you probably deal with on every day, or in a given week? What's that number one thing?
The folks that we deal with, we have tried to make it as easy as possible for security to not be at odds with convenience. And I use that saying quite a bit, where security always seems to be at odds with convenience, right? I don't want to have to enter another 8-digit PIN every time I sign into anything. I don't want to have to do that. It takes me extra time. I have to get my phone out of my pocket or somewhere else on my desk. But how much more secure is that making me? Well, much more secure is the answer. And I think that dealing with that and using passphrases, I think, in talking to people has really changed how they feel about security in general. Being able to make it a goal or a question or a place you want to travel to or something like that. I put spaces in it. I love Tahiti! Exclamation point, or who wants to rock? Question mark, or something fun, something that you remember, something that is part of your life. Maybe put dashes or a question mark in the middle or something like that, and change it up a little bit. But I think that that's something we deal with all the time.
I'll go next. So who here has a website, or either personally or if your company? Okay, so we've got a few people. I'm an independent consultant on the side. My day job, I work at Crossroads Community Church up in Oakley, and we have pretty actively used website, and we deal with the same issues that Brian was just talking about around like usability, like how can I be secure without driving people away? And to be honest, like you can take some lessons from like the industry leaders. Like it's not copying people and how they secure things is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not copyrighted or trademark or anything like that. It's actually like use some patterns and practices that you see in the industry. So what are Microsoft, Google? I'm not going to use Yahoo because of James Crowder. Microsoft, Google, Dropbox has some really good stuff as well that they're doing from the security side. So if you're in application development, if you have a website, like go look around and see what other people are doing, what other companies are doing in security. And if you're a developer and thinking about like, I don't know how to do this to make it usable, like go create an account somewhere new that has good security and see what the flow is like. Model that, just like reuse what good practices are out there.
Yeah, I probably work more with developers, and so the thing I notice is how they make incredibly very common, very dangerous security mistakes in their code. And unfortunately, as a professor, one thing I should say is some of it is education's fault, because I've looked in our textbooks and they show you like, yeah, here's how to do a database query. And like, no, that's a SQL injection vulnerability you're adding to the application. Absolutely do not do it that way. And unfortunately, if you look at question and answer sites like Stack Overflow, someone actually did a survey of their database queries, and the majority of them had SQL injection vulnerabilities in it. So if you're copying and pasting your code as a developer, and I've seen a lot of this happening both at companies and with student assignments, yeah, there's really not a good source for that. Those question and answer sites are full of vulnerabilities in their code examples they're giving you. That said, there are good places, especially for web coding. OWASP is the Open Web Application Security Project at owasp.org. They have fairly long free books on these topics, but they also have little cheat sheets, like you want to write a database query without vulnerabilities. Well, they've got like, a 3-page cheat sheet on everything you should do, so it's pretty quick and easy to look at things. They also publish a lot of tools and so forth, so it's a great resource if you're a web developer.
I had a question for you. I'm going to open up for questions here, but what do you think the first thing folks should do if they, I know you said if you see something, say something, but if you're managing these systems, what's the first thing you should do? Should you turn it off? Like what's the best advice in that situation?
That would really depend on your organization. And hopefully you've thought about what your incident response process is beforehand. So turning it off might kick out the intruder on that system, but the question is how many others are they in? And of course, if you just plug it back in at some point, you haven't done security updates, they'll come right back in. And of course, if you don't know how they got into it, they might get back in anyway. Even if you do update it, you'll find out, oh, it was a weak password, it wasn't a security update. So I tend to lean towards investigate, figure out how big of a problem you really have is, especially because most people don't discover that they're hacked for months or years. That target hack, they have been compromised for months. And it took, I forget how long for their security consultancy they hired to track it down and figure out that it was the HVAC vendor someone got in through. But if they just thought the person had come in through their firewall and stuff and had, tried to pull one machine off the network, it wouldn't have changed a thing. They were still so incredibly compromised.
Yeah, we're seeing, to tag team on that, we're seeing that a lot too, where keeping backups even for 6 months now isn't necessarily long enough. Hackers are there, they're lying dormant, they're not doing anything for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden when they decide to, they make themselves known through their actions. So it's a good thing to bring up, and we see that a lot more now than we used to.
For me, so JB asked about what to do when you're breached. That's what I heard from JB's question, shut things down, do something else. Is anybody currently experiencing a breach right now? You don't have to raise your hand if you are, but most of us, I'm guessing, are not here at lunch enjoying some Jimmy John's if you're experiencing a breach. If you're experiencing a breach, you'd be running off your hair on fire. So in this space where you guys are, where, okay, we're not being breached right now, there are things you can do now that will drastically make the breach, when it happens, easier. And the first thing I would say is back everything up, back it up. I don't care if it's on the hard drive, I don't care if it's somewhere in the cloud, just make sure you have backup copies and regularly so that if you discover there's some breach or something is broken or hacked, it's easy to restore from something a few days ago, a few weeks ago that has minimal business impact on where you are.
Although one thing about backups, because ransomware is so prevalent, and ransomware will encrypt everything attached to your computer, not just your hard drive, but of course it'll get the USB hard drive, it'll get your network shares. If it's a cloud backup service and your login credentials are in memory somewhere, it'll encrypt that too. So you really have to have a backup that is not attached to any running device or network, which is simple as an individual. Just buy a USB hard drive, back up to that, unplug it when you're not doing a backup.
The second thing I'll mention, I'll get to next, is so if a breach does occur, you're not on your own. I'm not sure if C4 or NKU or James offer this thing, but it's called breach incident response. So there are companies that say, oh, you got breached, call us. That's the first thing you should do. Is it's not cheap, but their experience in that space and their ability to do the analysis and make the right decisions is much more than just our average technology user is able to do. So
yeah, there's a lot of security consultancies that do that. NKU doesn't. We actually do some security assessments for nonprofits, but we don't do breach work. But Morphic is a new company up in Cincinnati that does that. A lot of my former students work for.
Yeah, Morphic's a good one. And C-Forward is a policy we have for about the last 2 years now, known that on-site backups weren't enough. That backups had to be automatic, they had to happen at least every hour, and they had to be moved off-site to a data center somewhere else, not attached to the local network. So we've been doing that now for quite a while, and luckily our clients that have been hacked in some certain ways, nothing has ever gotten to that off-site location that we've seen. A lot of the crypto wall, crypto locker viruses that became popular within that time frame, we have seen local backups encrypted all the time, and I think it's becoming more popular now, even with the newer flavors of it that are out there.
Yeah, I think NKU uses Iron Mountain. They're a service that does off-site backups like that. The only thing to worry about are zombies, because if you've ever seen George Romero's Day of the Dead, it's in this old mine, the movie, and that's exactly where your backups are stored in this area.
there's Passportal is a popular one. There's some other. Yeah, FastPass is a good one. Software packages where you can actually have your passwords stored securely and encrypted if you need to make note of them. The idea that I tend to use, though, besides, I don't subscribe to any of those services. I tend to create one that I created it a while back. It hasn't been changed in a while, going back to the 90-day type of thing. But I have one that probably services a large chunk of the stuff that I go to. That when I have to change one, I change them all. And I make it, mine right now I think is about 15 characters. It has a lot of different stuff thrown in the middle, and it's something that I can remember for that period of time, and then I move on to the next one.
You guys use?
Yeah.
The password vault programs are really handy, and they can also generate passwords too, randomly, so they're really strong, and you just have one master password that you type into the password vault software. That's usually an extension on your web browser, and so you just memorize one good password, and it handles the rest for you, and it can deal with the different size requirements and such.
Yeah, I personally use 1Password team version. So like that, there's 1Password like individual for me. I can also say I've got a team of like 25 people that some shared credentials with like shared servers or shared services and stuff that I don't want other people to see. 1Password Teams allows me to do that, and it fairly like for the cost of like a breach, like just throwing out some numbers, like $250 an hour is what you're going to pay for like a breach incident response person. You may pay that one license year fee for 1Password's team for your entire organization versus like 1 hour of dealing with a breach kind of thing. So there's some cost benefit, like you have to analyze yourself, like is it worth it? But I personally have used a few different password managers and really like 1Password specifically for teams. Yeah.
We also use password, and I've seen where it generates or like Safari will generate a suggested password that's nothing, it's not an actual word, but it likely does max out in characters, but it's a mix of numbers and symbols. Are those that you trust because they are randomly generated?
Random is your best bet, as long as it's implemented correctly. There's the if again, this is probably more for the programmers, but if you're using a 32-bit computing language and you call your language's random number generator and it gives you a 32-bit random number, there's only 4 billion possible 32-bit numbers, and that's not a lot of different passwords. That's crackable in seconds. There are secure random features in most language libraries, and you absolutely have to use those. And presumably, of course, the people doing password vault software know that too.
I think there are a few other questions. That's like your
That's open it up now.
Okay.
Kind of related to that, with like Google Chrome and stuff like that, they have like say your password for this website. Would you say that'd be like okay to trust? Is that really well like protected?
As long as you set a master password. If you don't, Chrome stores them unencrypted on your disk, and so any piece of malicious software, malicious website might be able to grab those. So as long as you set a master password in your browser, you should be good.
So you mean like sign into, like if you're on Google Chrome, sign into like your account on Google and it's encrypted, or like what do you mean by setting a master password?
I don't use Chrome, so I'm not sure. I know Firefox has one attached to your browser that's not attached to a network login.
Okay.
I've used Chrome's before, and it's good as long as nobody else uses your computer, or that you sign out of Chrome when you're done. Otherwise, somebody just open the browser and have all your passwords right there.
Oh.
To tag team off of that, I use that. I use the Chrome Center, but I also sign out. When I close Chrome, I sign out of my Gmail account.
Yeah, actually, one thing, since we are mentioning browsers, there's a lot of misconceptions around private browsing modes. And the only things that those are designed for is for other people using the same browser and the same computer. It does not make you any more secure or private when you're connecting to a website. It's exactly the same as not using a private window.
I think our next guy was right here.
I was going to get hacked into that. Don't they have all your passwords anyways?
Potentially. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about their back end to tell. Ideally, what they would do is they would use information from your master password, and they would use that to create an encryption key and encrypt all your passwords individually, so that they would have to break everyone's individually. And some cloud services do that, and some just have, well, we've got one key for encrypting everything. So like Dropbox is one key encrypts everything. So if you want your data on Dropbox to be secure in case Dropbox gets hacked or something like that, you have to encrypt your files before you put them up on Dropbox.
And I don't know about all the other LastPass or Passport, but for 1Password, if you get the personal version of it, you tell 1Password where to store your password data. So for example, it's not on their servers, it's not sitting in somebody else's computer, it's only where you want it to be, whether it's on your local disk in a very highly encrypted format, or you can even put it in like a Google Drive or in your Dropbox account, and it would, every time you ask 1Password to access your password data, it would go out to those services and access that encrypted file, only bring back encrypted data, which is, yeah. Does that make sense?
So it's pretty secure.
Yes, yes.
I- I haven't heard of one of those services being hacked. I don't know if you guys
Yeah, I haven't.
have.
Yes, one has.
Which one?
No, that's last. So I didn't. Yeah, I don't know how much data was lost, but I know that LastPass had to publicly announce we've had a breach, and that's never what you want to hear from.
Like I know 1Password. I think it's a 256-bit encryption on that file.
Yeah, it's very
I think
heavy.
that's what it is. Actually, on the file itself, it's a database that stores all your passwords. So unless someone gets your password, that 1Password you use
Yeah.
from your brain.
Well, that was my
Not
concern.
mistake.
Don't make the password. Not do that.
Although, actually, I see, you were saying you didn't like writing down passwords on paper, but I actually tell a lot of people to do it. Don't put it under your keyboard or on a Post-it note on your monitor, but really, if you do, it's better to write it down, have it someplace in your house where, probably, unless someone's robbing your house, they're not going to get your password.
I think we're back here at the tie, and then you get the jacket next.
How secure is a password-protected PDF or password-protected Word or Excel document?
If you're using current versions of the application, the encryption is good. In older versions, it was really trivial to break. But if you're using like 2013 or later, the encryption's really good. It's as good as your password is, basically. And there is software, of course, once somebody gets the file, it'll guess passwords as fast as it can. So if your passwords, 8 characters are under, yeah, they'll be getting it in minutes. But if you've got a decent password, it's very secure. Again, if it's encrypted with recent versions. If it's encrypted with like 2003 or something, Microsoft used some really bad algorithms back then, and it's easy to break.
No, that's what I was going to say about it. I think they made vast improvements actually in Office 2016. I remember reading that somewhere. So.
I have 3 questions, but they're kind of all interrelated. I actually go out into the community and I talk about cybersecurity for consumers and businesses.
Oh, nice.
And I've met with businesses and heard from businesses about being spoofed. Their logos, their websites, and everything else is out there for all to see, and they receive job applications, inquiries, and that kind of thing. Can you touch a little bit on the legal responsibility on behalf of the businesses if they lose consumer data, if they have been breached, or if they are being sued? And do you guys know anything about this new cybersecurity insurance? This is an area that I heard is either up and coming or is now here, and I'm starting to get questions about it.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about cybersecurity insurance, but it is definitely here. I know companies who have it, and I know companies who've gotten payouts from it already. So yes, definitely a current problem. But yeah, I don't really know the details of how do you successfully prove your claim and such for that.
The cybersecurity insurance has become popular more recently because of the high cost, to get your data back. Some companies, especially small business, they have a hard time paying it, and yet they need their data, and you know, I have read stories of companies that have lost quite a substantial amount because they didn't have cyber insurance and because they couldn't pay the ransom. And you know, this ransomware stuff seems to be around here for a while. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So.
Well, and there lies the ethical debate. Do you pay the ransom or does it get you up out of backups?
Well, there's a report from Trend Micro, I believe it was, that said 70% or so of companies have paid ransom. Even, including hospital, the California hospital breach that happened, they paid. There was a police department. I think there was upwards of 4 different police departments that had paid it. Police departments had paid it. I mean, it's like, wow, like, you know. But I think that word got out. The decryption keys that the hackers were actually giving out actually were working. And some companies, to get their stuff back quickly and to not ask any other questions and to maybe cover it up and not have to announce it. I don't know about the ethical stuff there, but you know, it's. I would imagine, like I said, that a lot of places aren't necessarily coming out and giving out that information that they were having.
Yeah, medical practices are a big target. I know they actually shut down a good portion of the National Health Service in the UK with ransomware. And at that point, it's like, well, people's lives depend on things being online. So in general, I would say yes, I obviously have the offsite backup so you don't have to pay it. But there's actually been a recent trend with companies stockpiling Bitcoin so they can pay the ransoms.
When they get it.
Yeah, because they just anticipate it's going to happen. And ransomware is moving on from just encrypting your data to Internet of Things devices. So there's been, actually the ransomware I showed, I also found a photo of it running on an ATM.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of stuff in virtual reality and augmented reality as well, where, you know, hacking the devices that you wear on your wrist or Google Glass or, you know, VR type stuff, smartwatches and things like that, can lead to not only where you are, but, you know, a lot of your information on those devices as well.
I would even add to that, like, so in terms of cyber security insurance or whatever, that seems like a proactive way to, like, just, you know, proactive way to reactively protect ourselves in case there's a breach. Like, we don't know if it's going to happen, like, we're just building up insurance. I would even change the conversation with some of those people to say, like, there are things you can do to, like, insure yourself right now, such as training your employees, like, not to open email attachments that they don't know, or technology-wise, even having, like, paying a little bit more per month to have antivirus software on the machines, or to have better secure email service that maybe costs more than what they're currently paying, but, like, in terms of spam filtering and virus scanning, does a lot more. That gives a little bit, like, more tangible steps about, like, here's things you can protect against versus, like, this giant nebulous cybersecurity thing that, like, I'm paying to protect, but I don't even really know what I'm protecting against. Like, I don't know. If I were in your shoes, I'd switch the conversation a little bit to say, like, what can you do besides that?
Well, and then put it on the flip side, though, your website is out there. Anybody can go out to Google Images and take a copy of
The
your
spoofing?
logo,
Okay.
your website.
Yeah, actually, there are phishing tools, and it's a one-click thing. You just point at the website you want to clone. It clones the website. It sets up the login page to deliver passwords to where you want them to go. It does everything for you. They're actually legitimate tools. You can go out and download the social engineering toolkit yourself because they're used for security training. So a lot of training firms will actually phish your employees. And they find this actually the best way for training, the web-based training and telling them about phishing. This doesn't work, but if you run a phishing campaign against your employees, and then for the ones who respond, you target them directly with the training, that seems to work really well.
Yeah, we recently implemented for our monthly agreements that we maintain a product called Know Before, KNOW Before. And we've gotten great response from that. So what that does is you can set it at an interval to send out fake messages to a group of employees. And it reports back who clicks on it. You can set it to be weekly, monthly, daily even. And we use that a lot of times for our clients' training. You know, this group over here hasn't clicked on it ever. They recognize it as being fake. They don't. But we have 3 employees that have clicked on it every time they've gotten one. We need to focus over here on those 3 employees and really, tie it down that way. And so it's been very useful, the training aspect of it. And that's why I underlined it on that slide. It's been very useful. Yeah.
What was the name again?
No before.
Okay.
And I think it's KNOWBE and the number 4. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't, regarding the spoofing, like I don't have really great like tooling ideas, but like you can contact, if you are aware of a site that's spoofing you, you can contact DNS providers and say like, hey, that person that's using their domain name, like there's some violation there, and there's governing bodies around domain name that you can raise things up to as well. So it's not like a really quick fix because each domain registrar can do whatever the hell they want, but like you have some ability to do something versus just like feeling completely out of control.
But a phishing campaign does pick up 98% of people within 24 hours, so they don't need to have the site up for long.
Okay.
We don't really talk about physical security. There's 2 questions, I guess. One is physical security, like doors and locks and stuff like that related to technology. And then the second, I've learned a lot of antivirus companies are coming out with routers that are meant to protect your IoT devices in your homes. What are your thoughts on those 2 topics right now?
Certainly the USB door locks have proved to be pretty easy to hack. Definitely, locking doors and card swipes are good, but I guess the newer ones, try to make it convenient as your car or something is a bad idea.
I'll make an analogy. I'm not going to talk about like physical security, JB. I'm actually using an analogy here that like, so I would say everybody here at your home or your business probably has purchased a home or door that has a lock on it, right? Like, unless does somebody have any completely unsecured house that they just walk in and out? No, probably not. That same analogy I think is good for conversations around justifying the value of security. So at some point in time, I don't know when it was, but locks were a new technology that were created. Like somebody figured out how to do the tumblers and turn the knob and all that stuff, and the bolt. The latest iteration of security, not necessarily physical, but like security in general, involves like that's number 64% of Americans have experienced this type of breach. I bet the number who have experienced somebody's home break-in because of the lock is much less. So in terms of like proving value or like justifying value, like why we're spending money on security, well, you paid for that fancy front door intercom lock thing, like why aren't you paying for antivirus or whatever, like that type of stuff. So that doesn't answer your question, JB, just trying to like, again, switching the conversation to give some different perspectives on how to prove value of information security and tying that to physical security.
And what do you think about those routers? Like, I know Bitdefender's selling one now, Norton's selling one.
To me, right now, it's untested still.
Yeah.
I just don't know enough about them to make a comment on them. I think that I will say as a general statement that the more things we connect to the internet, the more things will be able to be hacked. And I go out to, I'm lucky enough to go out to the Consumer Electronics Show every year and see the new stuff that's coming out. And the first time I saw a refrigerator that had a barcode scanner on it that would place your order for groceries because it knew what was in there and it knew what wasn't, I was like, oh, this is just a playground to be hacked. I mean, this is, and when I see things like that, and it's starting now with glasses and watches and things, but it'll eventually be everything. And I think just putting money into having it be protected is a great idea, and I'm interested in these new devices, but I just don't know enough about them right now.
I haven't seen any security evaluations of them either, but I do know that home routers are probably the most hackable device you have, so I have some skepticism about how effective these will be.
So a related question. My company specializes in IoT devices and the new networks, low power wide area networks like LoRaWAN and Sigfox. I was wondering if you had any insights in the policy and guidelines development in this geographic area as the adoption of those technologies happen through the smart city initiatives that seem to be shaping up here.
Yeah, I don't think there are any current security policies for those that I'm aware of.
Any initiatives out of state of Kentucky or that are looking at saying we should be developing these policies statewide, or Cincinnati, Ohio, or
I think Brent from C4, maybe you can talk with Brian afterwards, because I think Brent is at a state level in terms of trying to get in contact with state government about security. So that's my only insight for right
Okay.
now. I don't have anything much more to add to that.
And I don't have much on it. Let me get with you after, and I'll get you Brent's
All right.
information, because he would be able to answer that probably.
okay.
But, yeah, I guess for those, the vast majority of attacks are default passwords. So I'd say the best thing you could do is don't have a default password.
Yeah, these devices bring different things. They're not password authenticated. They're authenticated at the provisioning level during deployment. The security at the channel is pretty good, and sometimes it's a lot of times just proprietary, so you can't hack the communication.
Although a lot of cable modems have gotten
I'm talking about.
No. I know it's
Yeah.
a different type of device, but you mentioned provisioning, and those provisioning services are really hackable. At least
Right.
they have been for
The
cable
gateways are.
modems
What I'm
and
saying is
stuff, so.
that the watch that gets provisioned is not hackable because the MAC ID and all is already provisioned back into the Sigfox cloud, and you can't really do anything with it. Only the device knows how to talk. The physical security of that watch is only compromising factor, but you can't really download new firmware to it and do anything with it. Having said that, then if they're communicating to an intermediate gateway, if that gateway gets hacked, then obviously you can spend other spurious messages, like the East Coast attack where they hacked all the little things that the denial of service attack brought the whole thing down. So then the possibilities go enormous. If everyone's watch starts sending this denial of service messages, we're going to bring the whole US down. So the scale is enormous and different vulnerabilities, but to me, I think, just like you talked about policies and other things, for this other personal things, I think we really need to get very strong guidelines. And Department of Homeland Security has some stuff more targeted towards industrial systems, but as far as this consumer usage, some chips are coming in from the TCG group and things like that, but that's more securing the communication and not the rest of it.
I have two more thoughts. One, so you mentioned the infrastructure improvements and the Trump's executive order. I think because I don't know much about government process, but like Trump has more flexibility to make executive orders than the House does or Senate to like make laws and things. So I'd say that you identifying this, like you're on the leading edge of asking these questions just because like Trump is able to make decisions quicker in the executive branch. Like I think that's just affirm, like that's good that you're asking these questions even before like the industry and the government has put policy in place. Second thing is we have limited ability to influence our government and things like that, but we do have, what I'm hearing you guys say is you're custom building these things in-house. Like you have, or parts of it, you have ability to build security into your product and what you're doing.
Correct.
I don't know how familiar you are with like your team's software development lifecycle and how they produce software, but there's a lot that can be done while they're writing code that catches security issues.
We do that, so that's why.
Yeah, I think that's great. It sounds like you're on the right path is what I would say. Like
Yes, but what I was getting to is one can right path, but sometimes the high level directives start shaping things in a different way. So I think it's good to be in tune, doing the right thing technically,
Yeah, sure.
but also do it that aligns with the rest of the legal and there's framework so that you're not like off doing this one-off thing versus the rest.
So a company I do work with, they have their emails through Gmail, the company account through Gmail. And somehow the director of finance is getting emails looking as if it's coming from the CEO. I mean, it even shows, same company address and his exact same email address. And it'll ask, for a task or like, need money now or something, or ask, just something to probe concern. And she pointed it out to me, and when we hit respond, in the from address, it was then, you know, some other email address. So how are they masking a user's email address and sending from it?
SMTP is a really old protocol. Pretty much all you have to do is enter whatever address you want it to come from.
Yeah, really?
They're setting
Yeah, yeah,
it
you-
from address.
Yeah,
It's a
you-
known address.
And there, like that is true. And because of the old protocol and the problems we're talking about today, there are some additional domain level authentications you can do. So there's things called SPF records that will Google Mail Service and gmail.com will put a little like icon next to emails like that if your domain has the record and the email does not match the SPF record. I think the other one is TKIP, similar type of thing where it's like a public-private key negotiation that has to happen for the email to actually be verified as like, yep, you really came from your domain. And if it's somebody's pretending to, then it'll put like a big red flag and like, oh, this person is not from your domain and they're pretending to be you, so watch out.
So is there steps to take for them to, you know, I mean, she was smart enough to know that wasn't.
Yeah,
what it was,
yeah.
but-
The usual target of they call that whaling as opposed to phishing, where they go after top level executives, and their usual goal is to wire money. And your best protection is a couple things. One is, of course, don't have the computer used to wire money used for anything else, because otherwise you'll get malware, and that'll do it for you. But to protect against things like whaling, ensure, you know, traditional accounting requirements, you have to have two people to sign off on things like that, and be sure one person can't do wiring alone, so somebody checks off on it.
And if she wants to set up those SPF and TKIP records, you can search Google's help documentation and it tells you how to do that. Yeah.
Along the line of recommendations that you previously provided, and maybe you guys, I would like to see if you have some recommendations related to one, a better ISP. So GoDaddy, for example, if you ask the question, we're getting this email from here, you pretty much get blown up saying, oh yeah, they don't really, you give them the entire train, but they just say, yeah, whatever, and you know. So that's one, to me, bad in my list of things. Given price, I would expect them to, given the research, do something about tell me and block it. The second thing is when you register a new domain, like one-and-one, although private registration is free, they don't give you the option initially as you register it. And by the time you get to making the registration private, somehow 20 Indian companies already got hold of the new registration. Indian, because I could tell from all the ones. So I was very curious as to who lets you have the public information, that's for sure. But to me, it's like this new registration came in. How within 2 hours all these Indian companies knew that this is a new website register. That was very strange to me. So I didn't know whether you have any suggestions as far as more decent ISPs that are more reasonable to use for small businesses to go to.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a big risk actually for having your name associated with your domain as the contact, really.
Yeah, but the private registration helps because you don't get solicitation calls now from 50 people saying, do you want your website design, your logo design, and all that, including a phone number. So that's the piece of it, so the private. But I don't know as far as having, you know, same class as GoDaddy, so the price is reasonable, but more responsive. If you had any suggestions like you had for the other ones.
Two ideas. Okay, two ideas. So GoDaddy, like I would say they're mainly targeting consumer. I want to create a website, davemimasu.com. Like that's who they're really targeting. They also do have some business services that do like bulk domain registration and management, that type of thing. There's another class of domain registrar such as like, I know DYN recently had some egg on their face with a denial of service attack, but that class of, it's called DYN DNS.
Okay.
That class of DNS provider, like, yeah, that's their business. Like, they don't care about your personal website or racy Super Bowl TV commercials. They care about domain, like security and domain expertise. So
Okay.
that's a good, I don't know pricing wise, like if that's necessarily going to be in your range, what you're looking for, but it's at least, there's another option, is what I'm saying. And then if you're really serious about domain from like a brand and company reputation perspective, companies like Google, for example, actually outsource all of their domain work to like it's almost like a marketing company for domains. Just like you'd have a marketing company put up signs on the side of the road for your products. Like Google says, hey, we're thinking of launching this new product called Jamboard or something like that. The domain marketing company says, okay, here's 7,000 different permutations of that spelling. Here's all the different words that people might associate with it. We're going to buy up all of those domains so that there's no worry about like, you know, Jamboard 2 being used and then like people thinking, oh, I'm confused if it's Google's Jamboard or Yahoo's Jamboard. So that is another class of DNS providers, registrars like that. I don't know their names, but they exist.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I don't really have much more to add other than that right now. I was going to bring up DYN DNS. C-Forward does not do a lot with website setting up original domains and things like that. We support them more once they're there.
Do you host servers or?
Web servers, not typically, no.
No, okay.
We work with local third-party companies that specialize in that and do that. We realize that that's not really our bread and butter, so.
Who are the ones that are high on your list that are secure and would be less hacked because they follow your guidelines, I guess?
Well, the companies that we've used use their own solutions. So, I mean, we partner with Systems Insight here in Covington.
Okay.
We also use AI software that's based out of Cincinnati. And those are people that focus on not just registering the domain.
Oops, I should have sent out everybody's social security number and weight and everything else. Or oops, my laptop got stolen from my vehicle, or oops, I lost my cell phone.
Yeah, I don't know if any stats are broken down into how the data was breached. And it's sort of what most people use is the Verizon's data breach annual report, but I know it doesn't go to that level of detail. I do know that W2 phishing is a huge thing.
That was really popular in the spring.
Yeah, and unfortunately it started about a year or two ago, and I think we're going to see it every year.
So just to understand your question, are you asking like where the numbers of breaches come, like where is the actual like breach coming from? Is that what you're wondering?
Essentially, yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't have any, sorry. I don't have
Figured since I had the experts here.
Yeah.
Having the wealth of knowledge.
There's even here, like you're not going to get everything because there's so much freaking information on security. Like,
And not only that, but also since you are local, you have even local data on that kind of stuff. Local breaches and that kind of stuff. Because that's always, really influential, really interesting information too.
Yeah, I don't know of any like Cincinnati area reports on that. The only local data I know is cybersecurity workforce data. And if you don't work in the area, it is nice to know if you want to switch careers, we have negative unemployment.
That is true, yes.
I would add like there are some like really big reports that come out. You may be already familiar with these, but like Verizon releases a report yearly. Verizon Data Breach Investigation or Incident Report like has like a nationwide kind of perspective. I was just reading PricewaterhouseCoopers has one that comes out yearly around cybersecurity and cybercrime.
FBI.
Yeah, FBI. I'm sure the NIST.
Yeah, NIST is a really good resource. You mentioned it before. I work for Better Business Bureau, to divulge, and we use their 5 steps to better cybersecurity.
Great.
We have a unique partnership with NIST as well. We get a lot of their materials, but I always like to keep up to date with what the trends are. So it was interesting when we were talking about social engineering training companies. We use that 5-step
physical data being acquired and hacked, like laptops or phones and things like that, is a lot less than it's ever been. I just don't think that it's something that hackers go after a ton just because they like to sit in their basement and do things. So, you know, that would be an educated guess on that, but I don't have any numbers. Yeah.
How do the creatives, like the ad agencies, graphic designers, and even like freelance web developers, how do they protect themselves? They're designing things that look good, that seem to function, but if they get hacked and there's no legislation in place, there's no certifications they have to provide to their client, what happens? Are there incidents of this happening and these creative people being sued for this work?
Most of the malicious advertisements are actually paid for. You know, if they're going to make enough money by infecting people, they'll essentially describe the audience they want with, you know, whatever keywords, location stuff, and they will actually sell an ad to one of these advertising networks, and that's how you can get malicious advertisements on, you know, the New York Times or CNN or something. And those, you know, they do pay for them, and they're pretty clever about hiding them. Actually, they ads are usually a combination of style sheet, JavaScript, and images. And they were actually one of the big ones that have been going on for years. They stored all the malicious code inside the image, so the JavaScript would read like the least significant bit out of every pixel in the image, and then it would get the malicious code and attack that way. I'm not aware of like any that attacked like the advertising agency or the person crafting the ad to create malware that way, though.
No, that's not exactly my question. I'm sorry, I might not have phrased it correctly, but you know, a lot of people can design and put things up that look good, that seem to function. And clients like mid-sized companies, like a local insurance company or finance company, you know, they're believing in this agency or these design-oriented groups, like mostly around the area ad agencies that I work with that design websites all the time. And, you know, if that gets hacked and some kind of confidential information is breached, who is held accountable?
So I don't know for sure of all the people we work with, but one really popular website platform is WordPress. Do you have some of the people that you work with build on top of WordPress? Okay. So WordPress is great in terms of really easy to start up, free, and a lot of plugins, things you can add in, and easy to style. Not great on the security side. So I'm going to throw out
Tens of thousands of vulnerabilities.
Yeah, that are horrible on the security side there. Thank you, James, for quantifying that 10,000 vulnerabilities. But two things I'm going to throw out for you. One is called WP Engine. It's a hosting company that only hosts WordPress, and they are constantly scanning your WordPress installation and will tell you, hey, you tried to install something that plugin that has a vulnerability or one of the 10,000 vulnerabilities, we took it out because we don't want you to have that. You pay a premium for it, but you as an ad agency and your customers have the security or the confidence it's not going to break. Second thing is if you don't want to pay for that, there's another service called Cloudflare. You can put your website behind Cloudflare. Cloudflare watches every piece of traffic that comes through and will stop spammers, stop people from trying to attack your site, and actually improves performance of the site and a lot of things like that. So, and those are fairly low cost, meaning like an ad agency, web developer would know how to do all those things, and dollar-wise, it's not a huge investment. And as an agency, you can get reseller status, so you can get lower costs there.
Yeah, I haven't been in that space a lot. Like I said, we typically work with other companies. I do know that once the sites are developed, they typically are the property of the company that they were built for. So I haven't heard a lot about individuals getting, tracked down for security vulnerabilities. But the software that you mentioned, Cloudflare, and some other places I've heard being used, could be very good because WordPress is so popular.
Yeah, my best advice is don't use a content management system. They're a nightmare in terms of security. And for most people, they don't need them, actually. What I like are systems where effectively it's dynamic on the developer side, but what it outputs is a static site. And then what you serve to your customers from the web is a static site, which can't be hacked. There's no code to hack. When you need to update it, you just run it through your software again. It regenerates an updated static site. And that type of workflow is completely secure. If you are using WordPress or any other CMS, like the one Governor Kasich was using, you really have to hire a service or go with someplace that's going to keep it up to date. And they have to check it at least every day, especially if you're using plugins.
It's very difficult for small business to know all this. I mean, creators also, but it just goes back to being the responsibility of the small business. And there's a whole new amount of learning that needs to take place.
Yeah, we actually do create a lot of websites at NKU, and yeah, a lot of them got defaced over time when it's like they come back after a couple of years. Oh, someone defaced our website. Like, oh, well, yeah, I guess you didn't update anything, did you? Like, we always tell them they need to do that, but they don't always. And so recently we've been trying to sell them a service where, yes, we will check your website regularly and keep it up to date for you.
I have personal experience in this. I started my own graphic design company years ago. Similar situation, no idea how to manage this. I got hacked, and I learned how to make it more secure. There's a lot of things you can do with WordPress that we have to talk to you if that's a question. Very specific things that are really easy to implement that go a long way. But it is notoriously hard to maintain. I hate it. I still have clients that I get calls from.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's because you're supposed to be updating it, but that's neither here nor there. It's just it comes out of a policy, a contract, clarity, expectation about who manages it versus is it you, is it the client? And that's a big.
Is it the author or is it somebody that's now maintaining it, right?
Yeah, and part of my contract is I'm building you something and I'm handing it off,
Right.
and you manage it. So it has a lot to do with what you want to do, but there's an opportunity as a business to say, I will provide a service for you. I will update this. There's a lot of really cool tools now to help you see across your whole portfolio of WordPress sites and see which ones are down, hacked, plugins are out of date, so you can actually log in and update 50 websites at once with plugins.
Yeah, so the companies we work with employ people to do nothing. They have a group of people that design it, but then they also have a group of people that maintain it, those updates and things like that. And then also, now they're seeing companies doing the social media updates for those companies and everything else along those lines in marketing.
Just to clarify, that's different where somebody takes over your website as opposed to somebody holding your information for ransom, right? It's two different things.
Yeah, usually it's sort of a one-off thing when they deface your website and such. There actually is ransomware that goes after websites, though, and does the usual, encrypts everything on your server.
They can be combined, they can be separate. I mean, I don't think that there was ransomware tied to Governor Case's
No.
hack. They just took over his homepage.
Yeah, that was sort of classic hacktivism. They had a political message, and it was a great target. So,
I give an example. I had a WordPress site for a client. They got old, and I started looking at my server, and I was getting crazy emails getting sent out of the server. Yeah. And so I'm getting these overflow issues. I'm like, what's going on? And there's been tens of thousands of spam messages off the server through a WordPress hack. So you gotta watch out for that world. It's not easy.
yeah, if you've ever wondered why people can't stop spam, it's because there are literally, at any point in time, hundreds of millions of hacked computers, and they use those to send their spam. They don't register their own domains, they use yours.
Any other questions? Anything else? Cool. Let's give them a big round of applause.